A very good afternoon to all. As you know, the Institutional Innovation Council takes lectures for students, awareness activities for students from time to time. So in that series, we are today going to discuss design thinking for medical students. Now, after COVID, everybody wants to do something new, wants to do something that matters, wants to do something that has not been done before. That is, they want to innovate. They want to address the various issues that are plaguing the society. But a lot of students struggle with how to go about it, how to address these issues in a meaningful way. Now, design thinking will help you innovate. Not just innovate, but it will help you in making all decisions in life. Okay. So what is this design thinking? The reason why a person may want to innovate may be selfish or it may be altruistic. Okay. But all successful innovation address a need. That need may be a felt need, or even the person for whom the innovation is done, they may also not know about that need, but later on in due course of time, they will understand the importance of that innovation. So a good innovator is a person who has got a grasp of what people actually need. Okay. So the most important thing to remember for innovators, for designers, for design thinkers is to understand the needs of your target audience. The next important hurdle that people encounter is that they keep waiting for a truly original idea. They think that some eureka moment will happen for them, and then they will capitalize on that, and then everything will be a smooth sailing after that. That is not usually the case. What usually happens is when you are looking for an apple to fall, you lose sight of the apples which have already fallen, which you could pick up and easily you can use them. Even Isaac Newton, when he was talking about his apple, he was thinking about gravity already. And once he saw that apple fall, everything fell into place for him. So in order to identify that eureka moment, also you need to do your homework properly. You need to have a proper framework for thinking. Now, this precise framework for thinking is the Stanford Design School design thinking process. So what is this process? It is a very fairly simple thing, includes a lot of things that people understand intuitively. First is to empathize, right? Empathize with your audience, empathize with the target patient or the person for whom you are innovating. Then define the problem that you are going to tackle. Ideate, brainstorm, formulate various solutions for the problem. Then test these solutions. You must do it rapidly and you must not be afraid of failures. If you throw 10 darts at the board, at least 2 of them will hit the mark. Okay. So prototype banana hai. Ideate karna hai, brainstorm karna hai, uske baad you'll come with a couple of prototypes. Then you have to test these prototypes. And while testing them, you have to solicit for criticism. You have to ask for criticism. You have to find out what is lagging in these prototypes. What is a problem with these prototypes? Once you identify the problem with the prototype, you may have to go through 100 different iterations of that prototype. Make minor changes every time. But the 101st prototype, which you will finally go send into production, will be a very well-received product. So testing of the developed intervention or developed prototype is also equally important. And once you test the product, then you can think about the implementation phase. Okay. Let us see all these things with help of an example. Now at our innovation clinic, we get 2 students. 2 of our students come, let us call them Ram and Shah. Now, the first student, Ram, wants to make a device that helps the elderly in some way. Okay, so it is a fairly broad idea that Ram has got. It is about a device which would help the elderly in any way possible. Shyam, on the other hand, has a fairly precise plan. He has come prepared. What does he want? He wants to develop an app which reminds students to exercise. So, an app, a mobile application, which will help students remember that they need to exercise. Now, if you think about it, you would say that Ram is clueless. He doesn't know what to do. Whereas Shyam is fairly well prepared. But there, you must not be judgmental. The first step of our process, as we have already seen, is to empathize. As doctors, we are in the people business. We are already taught how to empathize. We empathize with our patients daily. We help them come up with some innovative solutions to manage their illnesses. And we make decisions that are life and death decisions daily. So we are very well versed with this concept of empathize. But when we want to translate this concept of empathizing into research or say development of a new device, that is where we skip this step and we think that we already know the solution and we prepare our own solution, and then that doesn't work. So the first step is to empathize. Now, this is what Ram does. He talks with his own grandparents and their parents at home. Then he asks them about the problems that they face normally. So he does interviews. What does he do then? Then he volunteers to visit an old age home. He goes there. He follows those elderly people around. He observes their daily routines. He finds out and he notes what all problems they face on a day-to-day basis. He talks with their doctors, with the nurses, with the family members of the elderly people, and he tries to understand. Shyam, on the other hand, what does Shyam do? Shyam reads about all the exercises that students should be doing. He is very well versed with all the exercises that ought to be done. He is also very good at making apps. So he has done all the theoretical literature review properly. He also conducts a survey, which is sort of a market research, in which he finds that, yes, there is a great need for students to exercise regularly. And most students don't exercise in a timely fashion. So he concludes that there is obviously a need for this app in the market. He also has an outline of an app ready. So he is in the planning phase. He has completed the planning phase. Now, none of these two students is wrong. But one student has taken a qualitative approach to understanding the problem, wherein he has empathized more with his target audience, even if numerically the audience is smaller. Whereas in the other case, they have done a more quantitative market research and they have come up with a lot of data, but let us see whether this data translates into a successful innovation or not. So what he has done, what Ram has done, he went to the old age home. He talked with the elderly people. They said that they find it very difficult to walk. They find it very difficult to roam around in the old age home itself. They find it very difficult to climb and get down from the ladder. And they find that their sticks or wheelchairs have a lot of limitations. So restricted mobility is one of the problems that Ram has identified among the elderly people. Shyam, on the other hand, got guarded responses from the people he interviewed. So everybody gave responses, but these responses were guarded. Some of them were offended when Shyam asked them about exercises for weight loss. Some of them felt that Shyam was body shaming them. Nearly everybody lied on the survey. Right? So what happens is, even though Shyam was better prepared, the answers that he got were misleading. Whereas when Ram was more empathetic towards his target audience, and therefore he got better insights. Now, what were these insights? Elderly people liked conversation. They liked to talk to other people. They missed the ability to move around and meet other people. They felt that going out and doing communal activities may cheer them up. So they were quite aware of the problems and they gave the solutions themselves. If they could go and meet other people, if they could move around more frequently, they would be happier. They didn't want to hear. What they didn't want to hear is, now that you are old, you have to live with your aches and pains. Right? So since their body was giving up, but they were not willing to take this advice to be more sedentary, they wanted to be of use. They wanted to move around. Shyam, on the other hand, what he found out was that emphasizing just on exercise is wrong, maybe wrong. People will, even though the app would be excellent, people will not use it probably. So you never should reach any conclusions before embarking on any project. You should always empathize with the audience. Even if your target audience has some misconception about what they actually need, these misconceptions also have to be documented, and you need to have a plan as to how you will tackle these conceptions of your target audience when you are designing the intervention. Otherwise, the intervention won't work. Now, after you have empathized, after you have collected the data, you need to come up with a problem statement. A problem statement is a short, succinct idea of what is actually wrong, what is actually the problem that you need to address. So Ram, when he was interviewing the elderly, what he found out was that to improve the social life of the elderly, they must be allowed to roam around, to meet their peers, to have conversations, to be able to visit their family members more frequently, to be able to go shopping, to be able to take care of their own needs, to feel useful. For that, they need to move around, and to move around, they need something which will help them move around easily, which will prevent the injuries by fall, which will give them support in order to move around. So that was the one thing that Ram found. Okay, so they need a way to move around in the old age and to socialize. This is what Ram concluded. Shyam concluded that just exercise, emphasizing on exercise is not enough, and what needs to be done is that for people to feel good, he has to sell that application with a positive spin to it. So the positive note would be to design a wellness application instead of just an exercise notification app. So an app which promotes wellness amongst the people would be more well received, would be better received, would better meet the requirements of the target audience, instead of an app which just prompts people to do exercise which they may not be willing to undertake on their own. Now the next step would be to ideate. Now that you know what your problem is, then you want to find out all sorts of possible solutions that could address that problem. Now here you need to let your imagination run wild. You need to experiment. You need to brainstorm about everything. Okay, so you can go to the net, you can search in the books, you can think on your own, you can talk with your peers, every possible thing you should do and come up with as many solutions as possible. Then slowly you must develop these solutions into more concrete plans. While you are doing that, some of the solutions would be excluded because they would not be convergent, because they would not be feasible, because they would not be on the top of your priorities list, right? So as you go on developing these various solutions, you may either increase or you may narrow down upon a few things that could actually work, that could actually solve your problem. This process is known as ideation. Okay. For example, Ram thought of selling electric scooters. They were not probably feasible for Ram. There was also an interesting idea of hoverboards for elderly, but that was too sci-fi for Ram and not feasible at all. So Ram got rid of that idea also. Then he came up with two ideas. One was teleconferencing for the elderly, so they can remotely talk with their peers, or a more simpler way was to invent a safer walking stick. A walking stick that would be more ergonomic, a walking stick that would be safer, a walking stick that could be used on stairs and inside the premises as well as outside the premises. So the teleconferencing idea was also dropped in favor of the walking stick. Shyam also thought of various ideas. He decided he could do exercise videos, but there were already a lot of apps which gave away exercise videos for free. Diet charts. Diet charts was also a good idea, but a lot of apps do provide diet charts. Diet charts are cumbersome and often they are not followed. People don't want to follow these diet charts. Yoga. Maybe some yoga exercises could be given. So already there are apps for yoga, and again, the target audience may or may not respond well to the yoga app. Also, yoga on its own may not be able to address all the health issues of the target audience. So although yoga can be a component in the final app, an app exclusively for yoga would not be a good idea for Shyam. Finally, Shyam came up with gamification. Gamification, just like a game, to design a wellness app like a game, to give rewards and punishments, to provide reinforcement to the users so that they are hooked to the app and so that they use the app more frequently and carry out the tasks which are health promoting tasks and do a better job of reducing their weight, of improving their stamina, of doing the exercises on their own through their own motivation by using the principle of gamification. So now at the end of ideation phase, both Ram and Shyam have a broad idea about what they want to do with their innovation. The fourth step is prototyping. A lot of people stop at the ideation phase. This is the problem we face in our setup. A lot of good ideas, a lot of people have a lot of good ideas, but very few people can translate these ideas into action. So prototype, as soon as you have narrowed down on your idea, what you can do is build upon it. So when you are preparing a prototype, when you are preparing a rough iteration of your original idea, what you will get is, first thing you will get a physical thing or actual innovation you will do. You will identify the bottlenecks, you will learn, you will improve it as you go on making it. Then you will show others can give you feedback. Many people are averse to criticism at this stage. They should not be. You should be open to criticism at this stage. Listen to everybody. Everybody who criticizes can give you a good idea of what needs to be done in the future. So as people criticize, as people find faults with your prototype, you can keep on improving that prototype. The principle is to fail and fail fast. Okay, so those who fail later in the process of development usually have to pay a higher price. Those who fail early on can move on to the next idea and can pay a lower price in terms of money as well as the time they have spent on that project. Okay, make things finer. They should be feasible, it should be interesting, it should be novel, it should be ethical, and it should be relevant to what you are trying to do. So always put your prototype. It should not be a very costly thing which is not scalable. Okay, so while preparing the prototype itself, you should think about all these things. So let us look at this example. So Ram thought about the material that needs to be used for the stick. The size has to be appropriate for the reference Indian male, an elderly male. The weight has to be manageable. So you should not have too heavy a stick. At the same time, it should not be too light and pliable, right? It should be adjustable to a certain extent, but that adjusting mechanism should be sturdy and it should not add significantly to the cost of the stick. It should provide a stable base support and it should be useful for the elderly people for whom it has been designed. So they should find it acceptable. Shyam thought of having a good graphic user interface to make the user experience better. The app should have different activities, not just a single sort of activity, but various activities that could be done within the app. The app should provide good reward mechanism and good positive feedback loop for the audience to keep on using this app. Testing. In the testing phase, you give the prototype to various target users and solicit feedback from them. You can do focus group discussions, you can do one-on-one testing, and then you will find out what are the problems, that unforeseen issues that you have not thought of during the making of the prototype. You get their feedback and keep testing it, keep improving it until you are confident enough that you have got a product which would get financed, which you can sell in the wider market. Implement. This is perhaps the most difficult step. Till prototype also 10-15% people reach. But when it comes to scaling it up at a commercial level, many companies fail. So you must be very sure, if you have empathized properly, if you have followed all the steps properly, then there is a higher chance that implementation would be successful. Otherwise, there is a good chance that you will fail during the implementation. So implement it well. Keep on refining it. Just because you have tested your prototype doesn't mean that the finished product would be receiving the same feedback. So you keep on taking feedback from your customers, from your users, and keep on refining your product constantly. Employ various techniques of marketing, advertising, make the product more accessible, affordable, available for the customers, and scale it up properly. In order to achieve this, especially for doctors, you cannot be a lone wolf. You cannot do all these things on your own. You need to talk to a lot of people. You need to have a good team, which is multidisciplinary. You need to have an engineer. You need to have a business manager. You need to have somebody who is good with accounts. You need to have somebody who is good with outreach. You need to have somebody who is thorough with the production process. So you need a multidisciplinary team. You alone cannot implement an idea on a large scale. Whatever steps you take, they should be iterative. You should keep on doing them and you should improve through your mistakes. Persistent. You must be persistent. Even if a few prototypes fail, you must not stop. Okay. Most of the people, they in Silicon Valley, you need to at least fail a couple of times before you can succeed. So persistence is a very valued quality among an innovator. Purposeful. Whatever efforts you put should be purposeful, should be goal directed. And you must be patient in order to achieve your goals. As we have already seen, this process is not linear. ये नहीं है कि एक के बाद एक step करते गए और ऊपर पहुंच गए. This process is an iterative process. At any point of time, you may need to go back and revisit your premise earlier. So at ideation stage, you may realize that no, we need to go back and empathize with people again. Right? And we need to define the problem again. We need to create the prototype again. So you can have to go back and forth from all these, within all these steps as you progress. The two things you can surely take away from this lecture is anybody can design a product, anybody can design a service, anybody can design a solution, right? Failure, you should not be afraid of. Failure is part of innovation, and perhaps it is the most important part. Maybe if you succeed on your first try, you may not learn as much as you would learn if you fail a couple of times. You may succeed much more in your later tries.